Um, so, just a brief introduction to today's speaker. Arnold Ma. Many of you will be familiar with Arnold. He's the CEO with Qumin. Qumin is a leading Anglo-Chinese digital marketing agency. So Arnold is the CEO. It's a full-service agency with offices in London and Shanghai. They provide strategic marketing campaigns centered on touch points of the Chinese consumer, combined with world-class technical expertise in SEO, PPC, social media, and e-commerce. So eminently qualified to talk about the subject of digital marketing in China. They've done work for the likes of Skyscanner, Eurostar, Urban Outfitters, Knight Frank, Kenwood, and the Regent Street Association. So a real variety of experience and expertise there. They're also currently developing a unique new software service designed to track and analyze consumer attitudes and behaviors in China. So very much a leader in the field of technology designed to understand consumer habits in the Chinese market. So with no further ado, I will hand across to today's speaker, Arnold Ma. And please do feel free to ask questions through the question box as we go through the presentation.
Hi everyone, thank you for the introduction, Mark. This is my first webinar. It feels a bit weird talking to the screen. I'm going to assume people are listening, so thank you for joining us. Just before I start, I just want to give a quick 1 minute introduction on what we'll be talking about in the slide. So Mark has kindly asked us to come and do a presentation on Chinese digital marketing. I've split this deck into 3 sections on web creative, search engines, and social media. I'm going to be giving you guys a little bit of, I guess, an overview and some quick actionable tips on what you should be doing in China on these different platforms, on these different channels. I'm not going to be talking about what the platforms are. I think everyone's probably already familiar if you're on this webinar. If not, just feel free to drop us a question if you're not sure exactly what I'm talking about at any time. There's not much time either, so I'm going to be focusing on certain aspects of different channels, and then leaving out maybe like briefly talking about other aspects. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask us in the box provided.
Arnold, just before you get stuck into that, perhaps we can launch our first poll question, just to see where everyone is based today. I know we'll have some people dialing in from the UK, some people from China, so we'll just launch that that poll. So please, if you can just select the option whether you're dialing in from the UK or from China or from somewhere else indeed. So we'll just give that a few seconds just to give everyone the opportunity to vote. We have a couple of other polls throughout today's presentation, so we'll be launching that as we go through. Okay, we can see that the vast majority of you are in the UK, a few people dialing in from China, and not sure where the rest of you are. But yeah, so as we would imagine, most of you based in the UK probably keen to understand a bit more about doing these things in China. So back to Arnold.
Great, thank you, Mark. So I guess it's good morning to most people. Oh no, wait, yeah, sorry, previous. Okay, so the first I was saying earlier, the first section will be focused mainly on web and creative, and how you can make your websites accessible for the Chinese consumers. So the first bit I want to talk about is design. So user experience and user interface design. There are 3 main aspects. The first one is social reinforcement, peer-to-peer recommendations. So what we normally do for this is that we give it a lot of prominence on the layouts of websites we create. I always say this in presentations, but it genuinely links back to the Chinese culture, and people tend to be more People tend to trust peer recommendations a lot more, and it goes back to the idea of guanxi, when people use personal networks to buy services or even products. So, for example, if someone needs a dentist, they would go to their network rather than kind of using online directory services or other directory services. So a lot of we do, and a lot of what I talk about in this slide is going to link back to the Chinese culture, and I'll keep referring back to it. So I guess, I mean, there is a method in the madness, and there is a reason for a lot of the stuff we do and why we do them. So yeah, first one is to make sure you give peer-to-peer recommendations prominence on your layouts for Chinese websites. I'll give you guys a quick example later in the case study. The next one is typography and type design. So Chinese language, as you know, is a vastly huge and complex language. It's a logographic language, and it literally has thousands of different characters. 13,000, I think, to be exact, and each character has many different strokes. On average, we're looking at 10 strokes per character. So by nature, the language itself lends itself to a lot of typography design and type manipulation. So you can, there's a lot more essentially you can do with Chinese characters than you can with any language based on the Roman alphabet. However, it's also kind of a downfall. So I mean, it basically means a designer needs to understand the language. Goes without saying. But it also means that because there's so many different strokes in each character, it's very easy to modify or manipulate the type to a sense that it won't be readable for the target consumers. So the difficulty is that the designers need to understand language, and you need to make sure you don't modify it when you're modifying the characters, or when you're extenuating a character in a call to action message. You need to make sure that it's readable as well as visually appealing. The next one I want to talk about is responsive design. There are a lot of screen resolutions in China, and this comes from lack of infrastructure, lack of landlines. So people are using a variety of different handsets. There's a lot of different screen sizes for tablets and mobiles. So having a responsive website is extremely important. And I'm not talking about the old school way of having different templates for kind of mobile or desktop. You really need to make sure your websites are fluid, in a sense that they work with essentially and every resolution that are thrown at them, so they scale with whatever device the user is on, and there's no horrible vertical scroll bars for users to navigate. And in order for the website to be responsive, it obviously has to start with the design. I'll touch a bit more on grid design later. So moving on to the next slide. Taking a bit of time on this one. So this is a quick example. I've actually taken a screenshot of the Sina website. It's the biggest news portal in China. It's absolutely huge. They're receiving 80 million plus page views a day. So this is really weird, because if you look on the left-hand side, they have the English web version of Sina. On the right-hand side, there's a Chinese version of Sina. You can see there's massive differences already. This is the same website run by the same company, and they're essentially making two different versions of their website, the UX of their website for different audiences. The main thing to notice is the amount of information provided on the right-hand side on the Chinese version. I think, personally, this goes back to Chinese people prefer to make informed choices based on the information that they have available. So they prefer to absorb a lot more information on key pages like the home page or squeezed landing pages, etc. And another thing is that the Chinese website will often, right now it probably looks cluttered to any of you out there that doesn't read Chinese, but this is not the case for Chinese users. I think the main thing is that if you don't understand Chinese, you'll seem cluttered because there's so many characters on the page, but people need to remember that each character takes up a lot more space than an alphabet character, for example. So what may seem crowded to Western users is actually just okay or normal for Chinese users. And finally, we've got the internet speed to consider. So this is not really a problem that's it's not really a problem, I guess, that's going to be happening a lot more, because internet speed is improving in China, but some people are still on very slow connections. So it's better for them to load as much information as possible on one page rather than having to click through a customer journey that we see often in a Western site through many different actions and clicks, which can be bad in China because of their connection speed. So that's Chinese UX part. I'm just moving on to development, and I'll be touching on some of these as well.
Okay, maybe that's a good time to go to our second poll. It's a fairly simple question. Does your company have a Chinese language website? So we will give you a few seconds just to vote on that one. Okay, great. So yeah, it's about, well, just under 2/3 of you don't currently have a Chinese website. So a number of potential customers for you there.
Get a Chinese website, guys. It's important. I'm going to talk about it more later. Okay, so in terms of development and accessibility for China, I'll go through these quickly. I've spent quite a lot of time on the past few slides. So responsiveness, as I mentioned before, it's important to start from design. Yeah, if you design your websites with a grid, the developer is able to ensure each element is adaptable to the screen resolution for the end user. So there's no horrible vertical scroll bar when people are browsing from smaller devices. And the best part is that you don't need to make like 10, 20 templates for each device with different screen size. Those days are long gone. So for hosting, this is a question that gets asked a lot actually. If you have a Chinese website, where should you host it, and is it going to be slow for users in or outside China because of the great firewall? And the answer is yes, it's going to be slow. If you host the outside of China, people inside China, and vice versa. There's a few different solutions for this depending on what your requirements are in terms of accessibility. So if you're looking for global customers, the best option is probably to host a website in Hong Kong and put a global CDN on the website, so people can access it relatively fast inside China because it's quite close and it's in Hong Kong, and people for the rest of the world will be on a CDN. So US and EU browsers will be able to have a good experience as well. Or if you're just targeting local customers only, it's obviously best to host it inside of China. And one thing that you should really do is put a Chinese national CDN across the website as well. Just because China is so big, it's like kind of like hosting the website in UK and trying to access it in Europe.
Arnold, could you maybe just explain CDN? What's the CDN?
Yeah.
For anyone that's not familiar with that.
Sure. Yeah. So CDN is a content distribution network. The whole idea is that it kind of like syncs where the content originates from. So in the case of my example, will be Hong Kong, and it will sync it across different nodes globally, and wherever you're closest, it will essentially load the website from your closest server. So it helps people. It helps people to access the site faster depending on where you are by creating carbon copies of the website all over the globe. In different countries, different cities. If anyone has any more questions on this, they can just feel free to ask in the little box. Browser compatibility. So it's it's really weird in China. The desktop browser market share changed a lot over the past couple of years. I remember when we first started doing this, IE6 was still really prominent. So every website we were building, we still had to do IE6 fallback, which is an absolute nightmare because it's a rubbish browser. So I'm glad Internet Explorer is gone. And Internet Explorer is dropping very fast in China because anything before IE9 is incompatible with Windows XP, and that's still one of the most popular operating systems in China. So people have started using Chrome as their main desktop browser. This is good for us, and it's great for Western companies developing websites for China, and great news for developers. But make sure you, whoever you're asking to develop your Chinese website, make sure you test Chinese mobile browsers. So at the moment it's dominated by QQ Browse, UC Browser, and Baidu Browser. So none of these is available in the UK. So again, make sure you get them tested just to make sure your websites load as you want them to on these browsers. Finally, quickly talk about domain registration and ICP license, or any kind of like the legal issues that you have with hosting websites in China. If you want to host inside of China, you have to get an ICP license. So this ICP license is essentially something that you have to register your website with the government, and they give you an ICP number. It's all just government being big brother and trying to track everything on the internet. And this also applies if you're using the Chinese CDN. So if you have your website hosted in like UK or Europe and using a CDN to create carbon copies of your websites in China on Chinese servers, you still have to get an ICP license. Domain is pretty straightforward. If you're looking to buy something that's like a Chinese extension such as .cn, you need to submit some paperwork. And lastly, just make sure you watch out for domain squatters trying to tell you someone else has applied for your demand and demand you to respond with interest. We get a lot of that spam, and always tell people to ignore them. So if anyone says to you, we just had a company applying for like 20 of your domain names, just ignore them, or just buy them yourself.
Quick question here from Jenny. She's asking, she's heard or she's read in the news that you can now register Chinese character web addresses. Is that something that companies should think about?
That's a good question. There's not much in case of kind of like how it might affect digital marketing, but I guess it's just from a usability perspective, whether you want to have a Chinese domain name or Chinese extension, that might be harder for consumers outside of China to remember and enter. So I guess it goes back to whether your consumers are Chinese only or you're looking for like a global consumer base. Personally, I think it's still best to stick with the traditional TLDs. The Chinese extensions, I don't know, I just feel like it's a bit of a gimmick, but I could be wrong. Cool, so quick case study. This is, I just wanted to show you guys this website because it's fully responsive. So any screen size, I actually took this from my desktop and I kind of resized the screen to different sizes to demonstrate what it looks like on a mobile, tablet, and desktop. The most important thing is that whatever screen size that you view this website at, there's absolutely no vertical scroll bars. Sorry, horizontal scroll bars. People need vertical scroll bars to navigate. It's important, as I said earlier, because there's so many different screen sizes in China, and we genuinely can't predict what people are going to access the website on from. So the idea of having different templates doesn't really work. And also, if you look at the desktop layout and the tablet layout, the two on the left-hand side, you can see that the social reinforcement message is very high up on the layout. It's literally the second element from the top, and it's before the fold. So straight away, people are able to see, you know, what other students thought of London, what they thought about studying in London, and what they liked. This kind of stuff works really well I think in anywhere in the world, but in China specifically, because of the emphasis on social recommendation and what I was talking about Guanxi and stuff. And this website is actually hosted in Hong Kong and CDN across China with, I think, about 20 nodes in different provinces. So it's extremely fast. It loads anywhere between under a second up to 2 seconds in certain regions. So should we move on, please? Let's move on to paid and organic search. Okay, so I know I said I wasn't going to introduce platforms too much, but I thought I'd do it for search because it's changed so much in the last year. I remember when Baidu used to have 60-70% at the start of last year, and then even before that, 2 years ago, they had 80%, which is absolutely insane. Dropped by like close to 30% in the last 2 to 3 years. Can't imagine what they must be thinking. It's interesting because Baidu has lost a lot of market share, but they still have a huge proportion of search ad spend in China. So I think they're still on 80% plus in terms of search ad spend. So I guess people are used to spending on their platform. They're used to having a Baidu account, and they haven't tested some of the newer search engines like the two below, Haoso and Sogo. So Haoso is a search engine that's been renamed. Used to be 360 search engine, which I think some of you are familiar with. 360 is a security software company in China, and they launched their search engine year and a half or 2 years, I can't remember exactly, but I think year and a half ago. Because they had the popular software, they had the kind of like the traction and the membership audience. So they launched with like 10% market share on their search, and ever since they've just been taking search engine market share from Baidu a lot. This is probably the closest search engine to Google. So it's got a lot more ads than Baidu. It follows a very strict kind of like structure. It's nice to use. It's really good for Western users who are looking to search in China and expats living in China. Sogo is a final one. It's a smaller search engine, and it was actually a lot smaller than this, but they merged with another search engine, the fourth one, Soso, to help them compete with Baidu and Haoso. So it's picking up a lot more traction at 14%. It's definitely worth looking at. So I guess the thing that you probably notice is that there isn't one search engine that's dominating the landscape like here in the UK. In UK you have Google on like 80-90% plus market share. So this is more like America, where it's spread between 3 search engines, between Google, Bing, and Yahoo. So whatever you do, obviously start on Baidu and see how you do in terms of like paid search, and if there is demand for your product, definitely look into Haoso. 30% market share is a lot, and there's, like I said, there's a lot less advertisers on Haoso. So when you're bidding for keywords, it will be cheaper than Baidu.
What would you say, Arnold, we're talking here, you've labelled this organic search. How do these platforms, these search engines differ from Google, for example, in terms of the way that the engine works for brands?
Yeah, it's a good question, Mark. I actually have a slide on this.
Oh, okay, we'll get to that.
I think this slide is more, Mark. This slide is more about what the difference in terms of SEO is, rather than what the difference in terms of, I guess, browsing experience. I can quickly go through Baidu in terms of browsing experience. So as I said earlier, Haoso is similar to Google. So you have like kind of the 3 ads at the top, and you have organic results after that. On Baidu, it's very different. I'll touch on Baidu paid search later, but there's a huge variety of different ad formats. There's like videos, there's images, there's homepage takeover, which I can talk about later, and the number of paid results differ depending on what you're looking at. So sometimes when you think you're clicking on organic results, you're actually clicking on a paid result. You just need to, it just takes, for me, Baidu takes a lot longer to kind of like find what you're looking for. That's not to say it's a bad search engine. I guess it does, but yeah, it just, for me, it feels a bit more. It doesn't feel as structured as engines like Google and Haoso and some of the others. But it's still a great search engine. It has fantastic semantic search. Because they have so much data, they're able to predict kind of like what you're trying to find with a lot more ease than a lot of the other search engines, because you have so much data. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So just going on to a bit more about organic. So I'll talk about paid search in the next few slides, but just a bit more about organic search. So just some tips here in terms of SEO and what the differences are between Baidu and Google SEO. So CTR, click-through rate, is a lot more spread out on Baidu. On Google, you have 70% of the click-through going through to like top 5 positions or something, something crazy. Whereas on Baidu, from kind of our experience and the heat map we've been looking at, the CTR is a lot more spread out, so people tend to look around to the bottom of the page for the results and read everything on the page. Oh, fire alarm.
Maybe if you carry on.
I think it's okay. Yeah. It's quite quiet. So, oh man. Lost my train of thought. Yeah. So Baidu's click-through rate on the search engine results page or SERPs is a lot more spread out. People tend to look around a bit more, and again, I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, Mark, about how people have to look around a bit more to find the perfect result they're looking for. And there's a stronger focus on on-page elements. In order for search engines to understand the context of your website, it's important that they still have a big emphasis on stuff like meta keywords and meta descriptions. The crawlers are not as good as Google's, and they're less sophisticated and they have less capacity, so they don't tend to crawl as deep on your website. So make sure your on-page stuff and your technical is really good, and your most important pages are as high up on the sitemap structure as possible. So Baidu's bots don't miss them. And also there's specific rich snippets and microdata on Baidu. So this is for anything that adds to your search listing. So on Google, you might see websites results with stuff like 5-star ratings, or even organic results. You get like site links sometimes to deep inner pages. These are all kind of like rich snippets you have to implement on your website in order for Google to understand what they need to put. And Baidu has the same. They have a lot of similar stuff that you can put, like ratings and site links. But they also have some pretty cool stuff. You can have images, icons next to your search results. You can have a verification badge to say that you've been verified by the search engine. You can do all of this with rich snippets. Some you might have to have Baidu Webmaster Tools in order to complete. This kind of stuff is fantastic for Google and for Baidu. Increase your click-through rate massively and gives you huge prominence on the search results page. In case of link quality, it's good to, with Baidu, it's better to mix quality and quantity. So make sure you have a lot of links. Obviously, nothing spammy, but make sure you have some quantity in there to help you with the quantity. Quantity in there to help you with the quality of links as well. Baidu, although they do emphasize on quality, they're not as anal as Google. So you can afford to be a bit more ambitious with your link quantities. And link exchanges is not penalized. So in Google, I know Google is really against link exchanges, but in China it's okay as long as you're doing it with authoritative websites relevant to your industry. So for example, as I mentioned earlier, Sina, the biggest news portal website, they do a lot of link exchanges at the footer of their page, and it's obviously working fine for them. They get 80 million page views a day. And the last one is variation of organic results. So I spoke about this quickly earlier. It's basically, it's hard to tell how many organic results, how many paid results are on the page, depending on the quality of the volume, search volume of the keywords. So if it's a high volume keywords, there tend to be more paid results on Baidu. And if it's low volume, there'll be less paid results, more organic results. There are some cool things you can do with this. So the only thing I'd say here is, before I move on, is when you're doing your keyword research, make sure you avoid the high volume keywords in SEO, because you're never going to get the positions that dominate by paid. Even if you wasted resources getting links to rank for the high volume, really competitive keywords, you're still looking at position 7 or 8 anyway. So there really is no point. Focus on like long tails with less competition, and you can do the rest with paid. So next slide, paid search. Paid search is really interesting on Baidu. There's so many different stuff you can do. They've got lots of different products. They've got some really cool stuff you can. There's some really cool stuff you can do. So on in terms of paid results versus organic results, this is something I could literally talk all day about because there's so many different things that you can do on here. But the long and short of it is that Baidu will essentially display as many ads as possible to to increase their revenue as they need to as a business. So what I said earlier about kind of like the variation between the number of organic and paid results, you can actually swing this to your favor when you're running a campaign. So what you could do is, as I said, what you could do is you could target the really competitive keywords in your PPC campaigns, and then the less competitive and more long-tail keywords in SEO campaigns. So this way, not only are you not cannibalizing your SEO or PPC, you're also dominating both sides of the coin with the high competitive keywords and low competitive keywords. So this is something you can actually do on Baidu that you generally will struggle to do on Western search engines because there's so much consistency between the number of paid and organic results. The next one is brand zone. So again, it's another big topic. There's so many different things you can do on here. But essentially what brand zone is that it's another product by Baidu where you can bid on your brand and where you can bid on brand keywords. And every time someone types your brand keywords, you get a variety of different customization options to show and dominate the first half of the search engine results page. It can be anything from videos to sliders to tabs, information. But the only difference is that it is a different product, so it's not paid. It's not PPC by Baidu. You pay, it's CPM, so you pay for impressions, and you give Baidu a list of keywords you want your brand zone to show up for, and it will show up for those results regardless of how many times they've been typed, and you pay a fixed fee for this. You can also do loads of premium stuff on this. So you can have custom videos, custom tabs, or custom formats. It's a shame we can't show videos on here because I've got this really cool video I filmed in China, in our China office in the summer, just when Transformers was launched. You can actually when you type in Transformers on Baidu, it's a homepage takeover. So all the search engine results turns into like Optimus Prime. It's really cool, and he morphs into a massive banner, and then it minimizes into the brand zone. So if basically if you have money, you can do anything on Baidu. It's fantastic for brands, especially those who can afford to run campaigns like this. There's also ad extensions. Last point. I just want to quickly mention that it's similar to Google, so you can have anything from like site links to mobile to click to call. There's a few unique ones on Baidu, like the official website badge, which is really prominent. It's like a little blue badge. You can see it on the screenshot actually. If you look on the screenshot on the left-hand side, next to the very first link, there's a little blue belt box. Oh, we got highlights. Cool. Just here. Yeah. So if you look, it's not highlighting. Oh, cool. There you go. This is pretty cool. So there's a little like official website icon that you can use as well. It's really good. It increases the click-through rate a lot, especially if you haven't got brand zone. It doesn't seem to make much difference here because you've got videos and like sliders and stuff, but normally it does make a difference. Moving on to the next slide. This is a video slide. So unfortunately, we can't play the video. But this is what I was talking about earlier with the Transformer homepage takeover. This is so just a quick case study to show what show some good SEO results essentially. And I'll quickly go through what we did in order to get this as well, so you guys have an idea. So this happens with a lot of companies that we work with actually. That their websites show very little traction on Baidu. Sometimes they're not even indexed very well on Baidu. The main reason is people are still focusing on, or people don't realize that you need to have different, instead of having Google-centric SEO, it's obviously much better to actually work on SEO with Baidu and Chinese search engines in mind. And this is a lot of what we have done for Canwood as well. So we've made sure they're on page, like meta keywords, which normally literally don't apply for Google, so people don't enter them. We make sure they have meta keywords on there. We make sure on page was really good. We tend to have a higher percentage of keywords in meta description for Chinese search engines in UK. Again, it goes back to the idea of helping the search engines to contextualize your website. And also putting them on all the Chinese platforms like Google Webmaster Tools, submitting all of the information, sitemaps, etc., putting them on Baidu Analytics. Sorry, I'm on Baidu Webmaster Tools. In China, the best way to outreach is actually doing kind of like paid outreach with local and national newspapers. It's really good because they're used to it and they're willing to kind of like post your article, especially with good content. So outreach-wise, it's better to go for news outlets rather than bloggers. We found that a lot of their traffic is suspicious at best. So it's best to go for like larger websites rather than smaller ones. And you can see, just quickly go through results, that in previous year, October 12 to 13, Qumin's Chinese website hasn't received many hits from Baidu at all, almost zero on the other search engines, and over the period of the 6 months, they've increased their organic traffic from Baidu drastically, over 400%, and they've started to get organic traffic on other search engines as well. So it was a really successful campaign. And again, if you guys have any more questions, just ask me in the little box. I'll move on to social media now.
Okay, I think that's probably a good time just to take our next poll. Just bear with me a second. So which social media platforms does your company currently use in the context of Chinese customers, I should add. So we'll just give you a few seconds to vote on this. I mean, I think some of you the second option there, Weibo and WeChat, some of you will be familiar with, some of you may not be. So in the context of targeting Chinese consumers, which of these social media platforms do you currently use? Okay, just give that a couple more seconds, just to give everyone an opportunity to vote. Okay, so I can see there that actually the highest category is Twitter and Facebook, which is quite interesting, isn't it? And then some of you using both, a good proportion not using any of them, and actually the lowest one there is Weibo and WeChat. So I think that segues very nicely into the next section. So I'll hand back to Arnold.
Thanks, Mark. It's interesting. It's more people than I thought that will be on Weibo. More than zero. No, it's cool. It's great that some of you guys are on these social media platforms already. So again, just I won't be introducing the platforms too much in itself, rather focusing on the kind of strategies you should be using on these platforms and channels. So the first one I'll talk about is how you can build engagement and followers organically. That's without having an ad budget. The left two is better for Weibo and the right two is better for WeChat. So influencers, these are kind of, we call them KOLs in the industry, key opinion leaders, but they're essentially influencers or thought leaders within a specific genre, like maybe a fashion influencer or a photography influencer, someone who has a lot of followers and who has a lot of traction within the industry. This is really good and it works really well in China because there's a different culture in the sense that these people are willing to accept money in exchange for their services. So you're able to they become advertisers essentially. You're able to purchase their attraction by asking them to retweet your message or kind of like promoting one of your posts. The only thing I'd say is be careful with any KOLs who has a lot of followers, who seem to have a lot of followers but not much engagement. It's quite easy to buy fans in China still, so just make sure you audit any influencer that you plan to use. There's no point paying someone to amplify a message to a lot of zombie followers. So it's important to audit them when you're prospecting them. Competitions are great for both new followers and engagement, and people use them in Western social media like Twitter and Facebook as well. But they won't, again, it's similar in the Western social media platforms. They won't work without any amplification, whether it's paid or organic. Just need to make sure people get there and get the message and people are able to enter. And make sure as well, if you are doing any competitions, don't give out random prices. Try and connect the price to the audience you're trying to reach. I see a lot of competitions where people are giving away like iPads and iPhones for no apparent reason whatsoever. All you will get is a lot of people who are only interested in the prize rather than the topic or the genre you're talking about on your social media channels. So try and link back together and make it interesting, make it fun. I'll do a case study later on how you can do that. And for WeChat, it's O2O is really good. Is really good for WeChat. It really helps because WeChat as a platform has adopted QR code to gain new followers. So people can scan each other's QR code to add each other's friends and follow companies. So this is great. You won't even have to spend any additional ad budget to promote your WeChat account. All you have to do is just print the WeChat code everywhere on your offline materials. So you have a business card you're getting printed or a poster you're getting printed anyway. Just literally put it on there. People will scan it. It's gone kind of crazy in China. I remember when I was there last time, end of last year, I was looking at all these posters that you have like on motorways and stuff, and posters like if you're up on the building, you see a poster on the roof at the bottom, and they all have QR codes on them. I'm just like, what the hell? Like, you can't even scan them. It's like literally like 2 miles away, and there's like QR code in the middle of nowhere on the motorway on a massive poster. It's just crazy. It just shows that people are printing QR codes on all their marketing materials because it helps. It's free advertising. It's converting your offline customers to online, and everyone uses WeChat in China. It's one of the biggest platforms with active users in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've definitely noticed at CBBC in the events that we do in China now and delegations visiting business delegations that everyone uses it as a way of changing business cards. Now it's become a vogue to scan a QR code and exchange contact details that way, and it seems to be not only about consumers but also about a way of engaging with customers and business contacts as well. So it's perhaps broader than just targeting consumers.
Exactly.
It's also about building those networks effectively.
No, it's a very good point, Mark. Yeah, on that actually, there is a new type of WeChat account called WeChat Enterprise, where you can literally use it as a CRM to manage your business contacts, like you said, Mark, or kind of manage your customers, which is great for B2B actually. Using WeChat as CRM because so many people on it anyway. It's like email 2.0 kind of thing. Cool. Let's go on to the next slide. So just quickly, I'm focusing on Weibo here. There are a few advertising products on WeChat. They're all there's. I don't want to talk about WeChat too much because the advertising products are still quite early stages. But if anyone wants to hear more about it, just ask the question. I'll talk about it later after the presentation. So for Weibo advertising products, there's 3 main ones. There's 粉丝通, 为人物, and 粉丝头条. So 粉丝通 is like the Weibo's version of promoted posts, similar to Facebook. You get flexible targeting, similar to Facebook. You can target people based on interests, demographics, geographic locations. Unfortunately, there's only a few countries you can target outside of China. So you can select the overseas option, and you get option to target 4 Western countries, UK, US, Canada, and Australia, and you get to target 3 Asian countries, Japan, Singapore, and Malaysia. The rest you can select to target specific provinces or cities within China. It's really good, ideally using combination of others, but I'll talk about that later. 为人物 is Weibo's own platform to connect KOLs to brands. So instead of you having to go out and prospect for KOLs yourself, you can go into 为人物 and you can post something. It's like a job board. You post a job, and people can kind of like take up the post, and you can filter through who you want to retweet your message based on like how many followers you have or how expensive they are. You can organize it by price. There's like a star rating as well. It's really good, but the only thing, it's really good for companies that are looking to run smaller campaigns, because they're actually a lot cheaper than independent KOLs that you prospect, but they're not as strong in terms of traction. So they have a lot less followers. They won't be as they basically won't have as many followers or traction or engagement as independent KOLs that you prospect yourself. But it's a lot easier to do. There's less option as well, so you can't ask them to post a message for you. It's just retweet and that's it. So there's less options, but again, it's easier. So it depends what your campaign is and what your budget is and how much resources you have. The final one is an interesting product. It's called 粉丝头条, and it makes if you promote a product, if you promote a post on this product, it will make that post the #1 post for your followers feed at least once. So every one of your followers sees that message. You're essentially getting 100% reach on your post and different storytelling. There's a few different things you can do to combine different products. I was talking to some of the guys in the office yesterday and asking them about what kind of stuff they've tried with our clients and how they've combined these products. So Yvonne and Ali gave me a few good ideas, actually. Hey guys, they're probably listening. If not, it's recorded. There's a few ideas that we came up in the office. There's a few stuff that they've been using with like our existing clients that tend to work really well. So one of them is, this is really interesting. If you ask one of your KOLs, independent KOL, to make a post promoting your message, it's really good if you ask them to 粉丝头条 that post as well. So imagine if a KOL has like, and it's quite often that they'll have hundreds of thousands of followers, like 100,000, 200,000, up to 1 million followers. If every one of them was promoted on 粉丝头条, you're essentially 100% reach on his KOL's followers. It's absolutely insane. Imagine the kind of exposure you're getting for your brand. It might be quite expensive, but it's a really good method. There's other things you can do is, so if you're promoting a specific product, for example, if you have a sale or a discount code, special offer, you ideally want to 粉丝头条 that post, so every one of your followers is able to see that special offer is on. So you can, it's a fantastic way of converting your followers on social media into buyers. I know a lot of people always have questions about how do you convert social media to buyers, and why should I have so many followers if they can buy anything? Well, this is the perfect opportunity for you to convert them. Yeah, so there's so many cool things you can do. Just make sure you think outside the box, trying to combine different products and what you can do, and take advantage of paid and organic amplification on Weibo. So just very quickly, I wanted to go through this slide probably should have been first, but so Weibo versus WeChat, just really quickly on what the platforms are and what they do and how you can use them. So Weibo is more of a fan acquisition and brand building platform. It's an open platform like Facebook and Twitter. Everyone can see the message you're posting on there. They're indexed by search engines. It's very, I call it a consumption platform, in the sense that people tend to go on there to kind of like read news or trending topics. They consume a lot of information, but there's not much in terms of like people posting their own messages on social feeds. They can stick to WeChat for that kind of stuff now. So it's a very consumption-heavy platform, and it's which is why it's great for fan acquisition, because people are on there to find new information. They're on there to find new trending topics. They're on there to find content that they're looking for. And once you've acquired the fans, it's good to try and move them to a platform like WeChat, which is more of a CRM and engagement platform with existing customers. It's a closed platform, so none of the content is indexed on search engines, with the exception of articles from brand accounts, which are searchable on Sogo now. Actually, it's really cool. User extremely active and engaging. It's a hybrid of instant messaging and social media. So people talk to each other like WhatsApp, but also there's a moments feed. It's kind of like Facebook. You get your social feed, and people normally take pictures of their food or where they go or the clothes they buy, and they're like, oh, hey guys, check this out. Because it's closed, you can't actually see, you can't even see what your friends' activities are. If you like something and you have a conversation with the person who posted the message, their friends can't see it unless they're friends with you. So sometimes it's a bit weird. You see like a photo, and then you see like people talking to themselves, and you're like, what the hell? And then you realize that they are talking to someone, you just can't see what the other person is saying. It's a bit strange, but it works really well for China. Again,
and I guess that tends to mean that shoppers, consumers, where they're looking at brand promotions, things that are being linked to by friends, there's a high level of trust
engagement.
and engagement.
Exactly, yeah, no, it's a very good point, Mark. So because people choose what they want to engage with and what they're exposed to, so anything that they have chosen that they get exposed to will get a lot more traction and engagement than they do on like an open platform like Weibo. Okay, so finally, the case study for social media. I've talked about this in a CBBC conference recently, actually. So I'll just quickly go through it for anyone who hasn't seen it. So this is a Chinese New Year campaign we did for Regent Street Association, and we wanted to make sure the campaign was very visual. So on the left-hand side, I just quickly took a picture of our designer Shane, who hand sketched the 12 animals of the Chinese zodiac, and they look really cool. I really love them. So so he sketched these, he digitized them. We used them as the key visuals for each 12 days of the competition. The idea is that the different shops on Regent Street will contribute a prize. We try to encourage that they're experiential and they kind of like drive footfall into the store. Something unique that people can't buy. It gives the store a much better kind of exposure as opposed to just something that can be bought easily. And so we made sure that the messages with the competition stood out. So if you look on the right hand side, you can see what it looks like within Weibo. You can actually, this is really cool, like the guys in the office like Alec and Shane work together to split the posts into different thumbnails. So even in the thumbnail section, you can see the entire image broken up. The idea is that because it's a consumption platform and people absorbing so much information on the platform that they tend to do it really quickly. So they would only read stuff in details if it stood out to them. And if they see something like a hand sketched horse, split out different grids, looks really cool, they'll stop and they'll read, and the idea is that they're actually into the competition. For this competition, we used a variety of Weibo products, everything from independent KOLs to Fenstong to Wei Renwu to Fenstoutiao, literally everything. We combined everything, we tried everything, and it worked out really well. So again, I just want to emphasize that it's important to explore what opportunities you have. There's so many products available to your arsenal. There's no point having it if you don't use it, and if you don't, you'll get left behind with your campaigns. Okay, so just quickly to go through the results. The campaign ran for 12 days, and it gained 5,500 Weibo fans with 30 million impressions on Weibo, and 300 new WeChat fans. So we did a lot of we did a lot of things to help drive WeChat fans to Weibo fans to WeChat as well. You have to kind of be careful because it's against terms and conditions of Weibo to promote WeChat on there. So you can't have stuff like QR codes as much as we tried. So you have to do it very subtly. A good way of doing it is to kind of like mention in the post for people to follow you on WeChat and other platforms. There were 17,000 visits to the website, which is Regent Street's Chinese website. It's an independent Chinese website. It's fantastic because you can drive all your Chinese marketing efforts to. It goes back to me saying how important it is to have a Chinese website. Not only do you need to have separate SEO for the Chinese website, as I mentioned earlier, it's also a great platform to drive any traction you get from social media onto the Chinese website. Give them information on heritage and background of your service and products. And finally, there were 3,700 competition entries. In 12 days, we felt this was extremely successful because it was specific to Chinese consumers within the UK, and we asked them a number of questions. The most important one we asked them was, have you been to Regent Street before? And 20% of the people out of the 3,700 said they've never visited. So That's great exposure for these guys and for any new customers looking to visit the street. And that's the last slide. Thank you very much. Oh, just quickly, a lot of what I talked about is on our tech website, dowinsights.com. There's a few blogs on there written by our guys at Qumin, talking about anything from e-commerce to search to social media. So check out dowinsights.com if you want to learn more about Chinese digital marketing. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, thanks, Arnold. We've got some time. I think we'll allow. We're running a bit behind schedule, but I think that it's such a fascinating topic, and in a way we've only really scratched the surface so far in Arnold's presentation. I'm sure there are other case studies and other issues to explore in a lot more detail. But we will take a few questions if anyone has any. So please feel free to drop a question into the question box there. The first one I have here from Enrico. He's asked about budget and which does Arnold have a view on which search option should be followed, organic or paid, in terms of the ROI? And probably that question's worth broadening out. I mean, in terms of companies that may have some finite limits on how much they spend on digital marketing, how can companies sort of go about measuring ROI on, for example, the different types of paid search versus organic, investing in social media and digital content? I mean, how can a brand sort of start to think about that? And do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. So I guess Enrico, you don't have the budget to buy the homepage then, like Transformers. Okay, so I guess so. I went through kind of like organic and paid for both search engines and social media. When I say organic, I generally mean that you don't have to spend any ad budget on there. So if you are a company who's limited on budget, focus on organic stuff, so SEO, organic social media. You can always even approach key opinion leaders or influencers to help you promote your products by sending them a sample of your product. So for most brands, this is much cheaper than using cash as advertising. In terms of whether you should go for paid or organic, subject to ROI and budget. I think what I said earlier is that it's best if you try to aim for less competitive keywords in SEO, just because there's so little organic space on page one for high competitive keywords anyway. So it's kind of good because you don't have to spend as much money and resources to rank for long tails and slightly less popular generic keywords, and also you can use some of that money to maybe run a small PPC campaign to test what returns you might get on some of the high competitive keywords that are being bid on a lot by other brands. So yeah, it's kind of like, in terms of search, it's about split. I'd say split your budget, do a bit of SEO and a bit of PPC, and see what returns you get, and focus on the channel that you get the most returns for. For social media, actually the paid products on social media is not expensive. So stuff like Fenstertone, Wei-Ren-Wu, it's quite cheap and it's good value for money, but you do need it. So if you are thinking of running a social media campaign, make sure you save a bit of budget for ad buying on Weibo. You don't have to spend too much money on there, but you will get a lot of traction. And yeah, so that's kind
of okay. That's great. A quick question from Sarah here. It's just about actually getting started with Weibo and WeChat from the UK. So if you don't have a company in China, can you register accounts from the UK? How does that work?
That's a good question, Mark. Sorry, Sarah. So with Weibo, it's quite easy to get a Weibo account if you're a foreign. It's quite easy to get a Weibo account if you're a foreign company. You don't even need a Chinese presence. You just have to find someone like us that can help you open the Weibo account and verify the Weibo account. On WeChat, it's a little bit more difficult. Officially, you can't actually have a WeChat account unless you have a Chinese presence as a company. But recently, we've just opened an account for Urban Outfitters. So they don't have a Chinese presence. They only have an office in Hong Kong. Normally, they won't even be allowed to open a verified WeChat account. But we messaged someone within WeChat, and they said, so we kind of convinced them because it's such a big brand, and they would like to have on their platform. So in the future, it's going to be on a kind of like per brand basis. So if you're a brand with a lot of brand awareness, WeChat will have to look on a case per case basis. We are actually talking to WeChat a lot to help them with their processes on how foreign companies can open accounts without Chinese presence. But they are quite domestic as a company. They are doing a lot better, to be fair. They're opening up their platform a lot more. They're trying to get foreign brands involved, and they're even starting to make the data available, which I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on. So yeah, that's what you need to do. It's a lot easier on Weibo, but it's possible on WeChat. You just need to convince them.
And it is possible as well to download the app in English language from the UK, just to sort of familiarise yourself with the platform and start to look at some of the postings on there. So that's something that you can easily do.
Both as well, Weibo and WeChat. You can both download them on your phone now, and you can use them on your mobile. And I think they both have English versions as well, which you can use.
Quick question from Jim here. A question that we didn't really. He's has a brand, an accessories brand, and they're considering setting up on an e-commerce platform in China on Tmall, and he'd like to know whether it's possible to link the WeChat to drive customers to the Tmall store from WeChat and from Baidu.
Yep. So that's an interesting one because I guess a lot of companies are going onto platforms like Tmall and JD, supposed to have the independent stores. But I mean, you can essentially still run PPC campaigns to drive customers from search engines to your stores on Tmall, and also there's a lot of in-platform marketing, in-platform PPC and display you can use on Tmall as well. Platforms like Qumin already have a lot of footfall, so you don't necessarily have to drive external traffic to the platform, to your shop. But yeah, it's definitely nice to do it because you basically get your own set of customers that you don't have to compete with other people for. So yeah, I'd say do a combination of PPC that can drive people directly to your Tmall. You can maybe do a post on social media, use Fences Hotel to promote it so everyone sees it, give them a discount code, and then drive them to the Tmall store that way. Run some in-platform campaigns on Tmall itself, do some Tmall SEO, Tmall PPC, and Tmall display. You can do a lot of things to drive sales on Tmall.
Okay, great. Well, unfortunately, we have run out of time. We did have one more comment from my colleague Fenella, who's asked if Arnold could come back and do a part 2, and I'm sure we'd welcome Arnold back to run another session on what is a fascinating and quite a complex topic. So thank you to Arnold.
No, thank you for having me.
Anyone who wants to listen back, the presentation will be available on our website, and it will also be posted on YouTube. So please go and listen back. Next week we have our final webinar in the series, which is on the subject of intellectual property, and particularly for registering trademarks for the consumer brands. We have a couple of very qualified speakers on the subject for that next week. So with that, I will bid you adieu, and just to say thank you for joining today's webinar. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, guys. Bye.